Hey guys, Mr. Mackey here. Now yesterday I was showing you what happens, I'm predicting how many times an event would occur if we were to repeat it 100 or so times. For example, if we rolled a dice 1,000 times, how many times are we likely to roll a 3? So I set you this challenge. You're at a fair, 50p for an event, you have a dice that's rolled 10 times. If you choose a number and that dice rolls that number 3 times, you win your money back. If you get 4 or more times that number, you lose your money. And then finally, if you roll 2 or less, you lose your money. Is it worth it? How likely is it you would win your money? So what we do for this is how I'm going to do it is I'm going to predict how many 2s I'm going to get if I took part in this challenge. Now the probability that I would roll a 2 in this is 1/6. Because there's 6 numbers on a dice and there's only one of them which is actually a number 2. So 1 out of 6 not only means the probability, but it means the likelihood that you would get a 2 if you rolled the dice once. So how do we find out the likelihood if we rolled it 10 times? Well, you multiply that by 10, getting you 10/6, also known as 5/3, or 1.6667. So if I was to roll a dice 10 times, I would get a 2 1.6667 times. But you can't get 2/3 of a roll. You either get a full roll or you don't. So I'm going to round this up. And when I do, I will get to the number 2. So if I was to roll this dice 10 times, the likelihood that I would get a 2 is twice, based on probability. But if I get twice, I don't get my money back, I lose it. So it is actually fairly unlikely that I would actually gain any money from this. So the answer is, with this evidence, no. This attraction is not worth it, because you're more likely to lose your money because probability dictates that you will only roll 2 2s when you roll the dice 10 times, which is less than the amount needed for a win. Now today we're going to be looking at the probability of quite unlikely events occurring. Let me give you an example. Say we're back at this fair and you roll this dice 10 times. What is the probability that you would roll a 2 on every roll? Like, wow, every roll. Well, the first thing we need to consider is the actual probability. The probability that you would roll a 2 on one roll. Well, we did that. 1/6. Now, if that's the probability of you getting it in one roll, what's the probability of getting both 2s in 2 rolls? Well, that's the same as the probability of you getting it in one roll times by itself. So if that's the case, what is the probability of you rolling a 2 on all 10 rolls? All you've got to do, and you will need your calculator for this, is you write down 1/6, because that's the probability of you rolling a 2 in one roll, to the power of 10. So enter that in your calculator, 1/6 to the power of 10. That will get you the fraction 60,466,176. If it asks for the exact value, just write this fraction. If it asks you to certain decimal places, let's say to 2 significant figures, then we'll get a very small number. This number means that in every 60 million chances of rolling this dice 10 times in a row, you would roll on one of those 10 occasions 2s significantly. That means if every member of the British population rolled a 6-sided dice 10 times, only one of them would win on this chance. It's so unlikely. So the probability that you would roll a 2 in 10 occasions, all 10, is 60 million, 1/60 million, 466,176. Tiny. Let's try another scenario at the fair. I'm at this fair and I choose the number 2 on the 6-sided dice and I roll it. What is the probability that I get my money back? I don't get double my money, I just get my 50p back. What is the probability that this occurs? Well, that basically means the probability of you rolling a 2 3 times, but you roll numbers that are not a 2 the other 7. So specifically 3 times. It doesn't matter on when of those 10 occasions it happens, but it has to happen. So, we got to see this. There's 3 things you need to consider in this kind of problem. Number 1, you need to consider the number of times you're going to be rolling this 6-sided dice, which in this case, 10 times. You're rolling this dice 10 times. Thing number 2, what is the probability that you win? The probability that you win in this case, well, you win if you roll the number 2. There's 6 numbers on a dice, only one of them's 2. The probability that you win is 1 over 6. And the third thing you need to consider is the probability that you lose. You lose if when you roll the dice, you end up with a number that is not 2. There's 6 numbers on the dice, only one of them's 2, which means there's 5 numbers that are not 2, so the probability that you lose is 5 over 6. So here's how we work out the probability that you roll a 2 in exactly 3 of your 10 occasions. You start off by doing your 1 over 6, and you do it to the power of the number of times you want the event to happen, which in this case is 3 times, so you do 1 over 6 to the power of 3. But this isn't enough, because if we just do it with that, that's the probability of if you had rolled a dice 3 times, the probability that you rolled a 2 on all 3 of those occasions. We need to consider the other 7 occasions where you don't roll the 2. And that's why we need to take into account the probability that you lose. So what you do is you have this and you multiply it by the probability that you lose to the power of the remaining events that we lose. So if 3 of the 10 events we win, that means 7 of the 10 events we lose. So that 5 over 6 is to the power of 7. Now we can enter this into our calculators. So you do 1 over 6 to the power of 3 multiplied by 5 over 6 to the power of 7. That will get us to decimal place. That will get us to certain decimal places. 0.00129. That's to 5 decimal places at least. So the probability that you actually did end up rolling a 2 on 3 of those 10 occasions is actually very, very small. So I'm glad I didn't actually do that attraction of the fair, because it's very unlikely that I would have won. We're still going to focus on dice, but this time we're going to be focusing on a 12-sided dice. Still numbered 1 to 12, and there's still an equal opportunity for you landing on each number. Now for this one, I'm going to roll this dice 25 times, but every time I roll a 2-digit number, I win. What is the probability that I roll a 2-digit number 10 times out of those 25? Now for this, we still have to answer these 3 questions. Firstly, how many times am I rolling this dice? So question 1 is 25 rolls. Question 2, what is the probability that I'd win? Well, there's 12 numbers on a dice. 10, 11 and 12 are the only numbers on that dice that are 2 digits. So there's 3 numbers out of 12. But that can be simplified. That would become 1 over 4. And then finally, what is the probability that I'd lose? Well, all you've got to do is you've got to find the rest of them. So if 3 of the 12 numbers are 2 digits, that means 9 of the 12 are not. And that can be simplified to 3 over 4. Now, let's focus firstly on that 1 over 4. We're doing it to the power of how many times I want to win, which in this case was 10 times. So we do 1 over 4 to the power of 10. So the second part, we do 3 over 4 to the power of how many times I wanted to lose. And in this case, that's to the power of 15. And that's what you have to enter into your calculator. 1 over 4 to the power of 10 multiplies by 3 over 4 to the power of 15. Now you will get a very small number. I'm going to do this to 3 significant figures, so you have to go past all these zeros until you reach a number. The probability that you would get out of 10 of these occasions a 3-digit number is 0.000000127. Very, very unlikely. Not impossible, just highly improbable. Could still happen though. 12-sided dice, it is still possible, but very improbable. Now for your challenge today, we're going to be moving away from the whiteboard and looking towards my flag pyramid above my bed. There are 26 flags on it. I put all those flags in a little bag and I move them around and I draw one out of random. If I draw a flag that is red, that has the colour red in the flag, I win. If I draw a flag that doesn't have the colour red in it, I lose. I do this 5 times. What's the probability that in 4 of those 5 occasions I win? That's your challenge for today. Pay attention to the pyramid that you're going to see in a second and see how you do. Good luck. I'm looking forward to seeing how you did. Keep on learning. Let's bring on the rest of Probability Week. Take care, guys.